All right, guys, we're going to keep looking at some Renaissance art this week, and we're going to start with the Arnolfini wedding portrait by Jan van Eyck. It was painted in 1434, and it is technically what's called the Northern Renaissance because it was not from Italy. So let's look at the portrait as a whole. So this is our portrait. Um, And there's a little bit of a mystery surrounding this portrait. There's a lot of questions about whether it is actually a wedding portrait or if it is a memorial portrait for the wife. Um, we know that this couple was married in 1426 and that the wife died around 1433. And this portrait wasn't painted until 1434, which is why we have some questions about whether this was their wedding portrait or not. Because why would the artist wait 8 years to paint a wedding portrait? Um, so, who are they? They are an Italian couple living in Flanders, probably in Ghent, which was the capital. Flanders is now part of the Netherlands, France, Belgium, that area. And so we know who this guy is. He is Giovanni Arnolfini. He was a wealthy merchant. We can tell that because this hat was a hat that was commonly worn by merchants during the time. Um, and then we can tell that he's wealthy for a couple of reasons. The first is the fur that's on his outfit. And then if you look, he has a gold ring on his hand. And then this is Costanza. This is his wife. And so there are a few ways that show how wealthy they are in the way that she dresses. One, she has this super heavy fabric on her dress. It's also lined with fur, probably ermine, which you guys saw in the portrait of the lady with an ermine by Leonardo. We can also tell that she's wealthy. She has this very intricate lace on her head covering. She's got a gold necklace on. Another thing that kind of alludes to their wealthiness is her forehead. It was pretty common at the time for wealthy women to shave part of their hair to make their forehead look larger so that they would look smarter. So let's look a little bit closer at her dress. Um, is that a fold or is she pregnant? It's probably a fold. If you look, there's a whole lot of dress here. And she has it pulled up in front of her so that you can see all the length of the fabric. Um, this was probably another allusion to wealth. She was not going to be wearing this long dress outside to do work in the fields with the other ladies. She wasn't going to be doing a lot of cleaning and mopping the floors and that kind of thing in a super long dress. These sleeves wouldn't have been very practical to do dusting and washing dishes and that kind of thing. Um, Plus, if this is their wedding portrait, she would not have been pregnant at their wedding. It was also pretty common at the time. People thought that the kind of fatter you were, the wealthier you were. So women wore lots and lots of layers with their dress to make them look larger. That was the style. So let's talk about their hands. They are being clasped together, signifying the joining in matrimony. If you remember back to his hand, his other hand, he was holding it up kind of like he was swearing an oath during their marriage. And so this just signifies them being joined in matrimony. These are Giovanni's shoes. We know they're his because this was a common style for men. These particular shoes, if you look, kind of have these weird heels on them. Um, these were actually to keep his nice shoes out of the mud. These would have been slipped on over his regular shoes. It would have been very muddy in Flanders. They didn't have paved streets and that kind of thing. And so these shoes were invented to keep their shoes and the bottom of their garments from getting muddy out in the street. He's not wearing them because this is their wedding portrait. And so they would have been on holy ground. A priest would have been blessing their marriage, and so they wouldn't have been wearing their shoes. And then here we have oranges. They're a symbol of wealth. This would have been a very expensive treat. More than likely, this couple didn't actually have any oranges. Oranges were reserved for the super ultra wealthy, usually nobles and the elite, not the merchant class, even though they would have been very, very rich. Another thing that alludes to their wealth is they actually have glass in their window panes. Not every house would have had glass, most would have just had these shutters to keep out light and either heat or cool. And so the fact that we can see a window pane and that they have glass in their window just shows how wealthy they are. Another symbol of the wealth is the dog. Um, it's a small lap dog. It's not a working dog. This isn't a dog that's supposed to protect the cattle or anything. Um, and so the fact that this couple would have had an animal that didn't have any function outside of just being with the family is an indicator of their wealth. The little dog is also a symbol of loyalty and shows the love between the couple. He's also very, very frilly. They would have had to take time to groom him, that kind of thing. So, the next thing, let's talk about her shoes. They show wealth. If you look, these are not high heeled. So, this is not a lady that would have been going out and doing her own shopping or that kind of thing. These are probably silk, and if you look, they even have some little decorations on them. So, she would not have worn these outside in the mud. These were just kind of show off shoes. Same as before, she's not wearing her shoes because they're on holy ground, they're getting married. And then another symbol of wealth is this rug. It's a very intricate rug. It probably would have been imported from another country and it would have been very, very expensive. Here is another symbol of their wealth. This is a beautiful brass or gold chandelier. We're not really sure. It's very fancy. If you look a little bit closer, you can see all these little details, all the intricate work that went into this chandelier. You can also see there are small crosses carved into it to kind of show their religious affiliations. And if you look, there is a candle on one side that's lit, and there are no candles on the other side. Um, we'll talk about that more in just a second. And so here we have the lit candle. There are a couple of reasons people think that the candle is there. One, they think it might be an allusion to God, the one lit candle. Another reason is that people think there's a lit candle on his side because he was still alive when the wedding portrait was painted. And there's no candle on Costanza's side because she passed away before the painting was painted. So let's look at some more little symbols. Back here in the back, there's this little broom that's signifying that her job is to stay home and take care of the house. We also have this little symbol up here. That's the patron saint of childbirth. It has been suggested that maybe she passed away during childbirth, and that's why this is a memorial portrait instead of just a wedding portrait. Now let's talk about this mirror. This is a huge, huge indicator of wealth. Um, they probably did not have a mirror this size. This was probably something that was made up by the artist. Most mirrors at the time were very, very expensive, and they were about the size of your palm. So for this couple to have a mirror that large, they would have had to been very, very wealthy. The mirror also shows the couple's um, religion because there are symbols all around the outside of the mirror, and those symbols are different moments from the time in the life of Jesus. And so this couple was probably Catholic, like most people were at this time period in the Netherlands, Flanders, Italy, that kind of thing. Um, and so the fact that it shows those scenes from the life of Jesus really shows their religion. Um, and so let's talk about the reflection in the mirror. One of the things that's pretty important is that we see three people back here in the back. Those are suggested that it might be the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, but it's also quite possible that it's just the artist, the priest, and a witness to the marriage. We're not really sure. And then if we look over here on the left, this is a rosary. So this once again shows that the couple is probably Catholic. Um, and then above the mirror is this very, very large signature. And that is the artist's signature. It actually says Jan van Eyck was here. And then it has the date that it was painted. And so this could be him acting as a witness to the marriage, saying that yes, they were married. Um, we aren't really sure why it's so prominent on the wall. If you look behind the couple, it's a fairly large signature and it's right in the middle of the painting. Um, but this is the Arnolfini wedding portrait. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about it. Um, I just want to show off a little bit like how good the artist was. Like you can see the reflection of the chandelier in the mirror. Um, Another little thing that's really interesting is in the portrait itself. If we go back so we can look at it as a whole, you can't see what is outside the window from the portrait, but because the mirror is in a different spot, you can actually see that there's a cherry tree blooming outside, um, which is really interesting because the cherry tree represents fertility, which is another allusion to the fact that she might have died in childbirth. The light that the artist has managed to capture, you see all the little highlights in the shadows on the beads. You can see the string inside the beads on the rosary. And then, like I said, there's his very fancy, fancy portrait. So that was the Arnolfini wedding portrait. Guys, go to your worksheet. I've put it in a Google form. This video should be in the Google form, but I'm also going to upload it separately. If you need help or have questions about anything, let me know.